Did you know that 1/3 of all the food produced in this world for human consumption is wasted or just completely lost? That's around $1 trillion just gone. In Africa, it's even more than that. Almost 40% is wasted, and a lot of food is lost because they aren't stored properly or handled well. Imagine a fish farmer catching all that fish and just losing them. It's called post-harvest waste.
Post-harvest loss is a loss that happens after you have done all the job and you have harvested your product or produce. And therefore, it's not a loss that should happen in the first place because you have already done all the hard work.
I met Francis in New York, and he's helping fish and poultry farmers to store the food that they harvest so that they can maximize more of what they've worked so hard for.
Post-harvest loss happens mainly after harvesting the produce and as you take it to the market before it is consumed by the consumer or the customer.
And your solar-powered refrigeration solution is trying to help cut this post-harvest loss by 25%. How are you trying to approach that?
We are focusing mainly on the fish and the poultry value chain, maybe more on the fish value chain. And what you're trying to do is to make sure that when fishermen harvest the fish, they don't end up selling the fish at throwaway prices because they don't have ready market, and two, they don't have a preservation method that can keep the fish at the optimum quality that can attract a premium price. So by doing that, we are providing a solution that really helps the fisher folk and also the fish farms be able to get the best possible value for their products.
Thanks to the Earthshot Prize, every year 5 people get £1 million each for ideas that contribute towards a better environment and world. It was launched in 2020 by Prince William with the annual summit hosted by Bloomberg Philanthropies. Francis is one of the 3 finalists I spoke with this year, and he shares the solution and how he also built a platform for it. Without further ado, let's get to it.
My name is Francis Nderitu. I come from Kenya, and I run a company called Keep It Cool.
Yeah.
Keep It Cool, as the name suggests, is a cooling as a service company that is making cooling affordable for underserved communities in Africa.
Why would you say this idea is important for the world right now?
The idea is important for the world because we have huge high post-harvest losses, especially in the part of where we come from, in Africa, because obviously there is inadequate infrastructure. There is also some handling practices that were good for the world then, but not for today. So for example, salting or drying of products as a way of preservation. So that of course has led to a lot of post-harvest losses in today's world because the weather is also quite unpredictable, or the climate is unpredictable. So it's an important intervention that you are trying to scale in Africa in order to reduce these post-harvest losses across the continent.
One thing he's doing is that in addition to storing their produce, he helped create a platform that can help fish and poultry farmers reach customers and sell more.
Yeah, so when we went to the field, speaking to the fisher folks, speaking to farmers, we had this assumption that what they really needed was a preservation method. But the truth is, they actually need proper market access and proper go-to-market sort of channels. And cold chain only comes as a subsequent of lack of access to markets. And therefore, what we did was to come up with a blend where we guarantee offtake to the fisher folks and the producers. And then on the demand side, that's where now we install the solar freezer so that the women in the market can be able to store and sell at a slower pace and still have the same quality of produce that they can. So it was not necessarily supporting the farmers to access the cold chain. It is for the farmers to access the market access. And those who are not able to access the market access then also access storage, but also mainly to unlock this backlog where the off-takers will not off-take as much because they didn't have preservation as well. So we end up deploying our cold chain solution not only on the producer side, but also on the retailers and the hotels and restaurant side, so that they can be able to off-take as much as possible from farmers. Yep.
The idea is basically, a farmer is doing his work.
Yes.
He wants to, he's catching fish. He wants to preserve it. You offer that solution, but in addition to that, you help them sort of find the market for their fish.
For their fish or their poultry.
Yeah, and also store it in a more a way that it's preserved better.
Yes.
Interesting. Do you plan to bring this idea anywhere else apart from Kenya?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, it's a very well-known problem.
Yeah.
With the solution being a little bit, expensive, because you need all these upfront costs, and here we are talking about a smallholder farmer who cannot be able to buy these expensive equipments. So, yeah, it's something that we intend to scale across different African countries. We want to make sure that we are making cooling as affordable and accessible, not only to the two value chains that you're working with, that is fish and poultry, and also extended to other value chains within the continent and also other parts of the world that may need this solution.
What are some of those challenges you faced, like so far, even doing this? How long has it been?
We've been operating for 5 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, the main one is access to capital, because we're speaking about getting the equipment and then doing it as a service to this community so that they can be able to afford it. The biggest challenge has been financing that. Secondly, of course, in a continent where there's so much segmentation, food practices in, let's say, Kenya is not the same food practices in Tanzania or food practices in other countries. And therefore, you have to not only have some legal handles that you have to jump when you're trying to scale a company, but also some challenges when also you're trying to bring the equipment into that particular country. So that has been an issue in terms of scaling the company in East Africa.
And how are you trying to solve for that? Like, are you actively working on that?
Yes, we are actively working on that. So we have certain support, let's say from Rwanda government, where you go and speak to the government and you show them a success story maybe in Kenya, and you see the value of your work, and of course they're willing to support you. But it has to be success story that you have to show.
I was even going to ask, like, speaking of success stories, like what are some of those success stories, if you can maybe share some of those?
Yeah, so we have had quite a lot in terms of people coming forward and saying that, if I eat not for keep it cool, this is I'm successful because of this. So for example, there is this woman who was doing about 200 birds, and because of keep it cool, right now she's doing 2,000 birds, because not only did we provide her a stable offtake and predictable offtake, we also sort of gave her the right sort of support. We have an in-house veterinary officer who goes around supporting poultry farmers. So she has reduced completely the use of antibiotics. She has grown her production capacity 10 times because now this veterinary officer is able to come and guide her on the best practices, use less feeds and maximize feeds utilization, for example. And by doing that, she has been improved her productivity 10 times.
Yeah, that's the 10x from 200 to 2,000.
Yes.
Somebody literally is 10x in their income. And that's very cool. And I like that you mentioned like the in-house vet. This is for poultry now specifically?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. We also have the same equivalent for fish, like a quality assurance officer who basically trains the fisher folks on the best practices of fish preservation, etc.
Oh, that's interesting. And I wanted to ask about like maybe upcoming projects or technologies that you are, particularly excited about. Maybe the future of what you're doing.
For the last 2-3 years, I was excited about blockchain and what it presents around supply chains and the solutions that we have in terms of traceability. At the moment, of course, coming from Africa, where we have lots of currencies and making almost impossible to do business, I'm excited about decentralized currencies like Bitcoin and basically digital currencies, which will make business much easier for Africans. So I'm quite excited about that part because I know it will unlock a lot of business opportunities for people like us.
So still on the question of the future, what are some maybe the dream partnerships that you would want to have, like beneficial partnerships that you would want to have, and that would help you get to the next level of what you're trying to build?
Yeah, so the whole purpose of working on Keep It Cool this hard and making sure that we have this infrastructure is to help the smallholder farmers and producers in that part of the world dealing with fish and poultry be able to export their produce to global markets. And therefore, the ideal sort of partnership is where we can be able to bring Kenyan or Ugandan or African produce to America and sell it, let's say, in Walmart or in a leading retail chain in this part of the world, or maybe Asia, or maybe Middle East. Those are some of the partnerships that we are currently exploring.
For people who are watching this, part of the people who watch my channel also are interested in like personal finance, financing like their companies and things like that. What was how did you manage to get the first maybe bout of funding, or maybe it's a grant from the beginning to the middle stage to where you are now?
To be honest, I started the company myself with my own savings. And then after maybe 2 or 3 months, I won a competition with African Development Bank. So they normally hold annual competition for youth in Africa. And that's where I won my first competition, which gave us about 10,000 USD. And basically that's what was among the biggest check I'd received by then. And that was our first investment. So it was through a validated competition, and basically they also did a lot of PR around it because we are like 20 African founders. And basically the next 2 months or so, I got approached by an angel investor who invested $20,000, and just like that continued building.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it from me. But is there anything else you want to add to this? Like, is there anything you feel like you want to say about the idea, about what you're building, and stuff that can maybe just inspire people in general?
Yeah. So I just want to tell people, or your audience out there who are interested in starting something, that they should get it going. They should not wait. Even me, when I was starting this company, I did not, sort of have second thoughts or think too much about it. I just started, and so far it has worked. So I believe in, just doing something, and don't fear to make mistakes, because, the formula is always high risk, high reward, and therefore you should not sit on your ideas.
Essentially, just start.
Just start.
Thank you so much.
All right.
This was very interesting. Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Yeah.
Awesome.